Śrī Rūpa Gosvāmī's Upadeśāmrta, with illuminations by Śrīla Bhakti Rakshak Śrīdhara Deva Gosvāmī Mahārāja. Dedicated to our beloved Guru Dev, Śrīla Bhakti Gaurava Narasingha Mahārāja, who connected us with the divine teachings of Śrīdhara Deva Gosvāmī Mahārāja. Foreword by Śrīla Bhakti Kishore Aranya Mahārāja. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto my initiating spiritual master, Śrīla A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada, who rescued me from the ocean of repeated birth and death, and who established within me the understanding of what is what in relation to my ultimate prospect, love of God. It was he who guided us to the lotus feet of Śrīla Bhakti Rakshak Śrīdhara Deva Gosvāmī Mahārāja, who, out of his causeless mercy, gave us shelter and protected us after the calamitous reactions that took place after the departure of Śrīla Prabhupada. It was Śrīla Śrīdhara Mahārāja who refined and enhanced our conception of divinity. What Śrīla Prabhupada gave us in his books, Śrīla Śrīdhara Mahārāja drew out the essence of those instructions and imparted them to the Vaishnava world, both by practical and personal directives, to all that came to hear from him. Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī penned this great and formidable treatise, Upadeśāmrta, a practical guide on how to proceed in bhakti step by step, beginning with sense, mind, and emotional control, enabling one to move towards the highest level of devotional sentiments, in line with the maidservants of Gandharva Śrī Radha, the topmost servant of Śrī Govinda Dev. Inspired from deep within, Śrīla Śrīdhara Mahārāja gives his clear and spontaneous, inspirational shiksha on each and every verse penned by Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī, who is none other than Śrī Rūpa Manjari. These clear and illuminating revelations prove that Saraswati Thakur saw in Śrīla Śrīdhara Mahārāja a person qualified to carry on the proper conception of divinity, just as Mahaprabhu himself considered Rūpa Gosvāmī to be the most qualified person to receive and elucidate his directives. The explanations spoken by Śrīla Śrīdhara Mahārāja to these 11 verses are taken from a compilation of various discussions with disciples of His Divine Grace, Śrīla A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, over a period of 7 years. It was the arduous seva of our dear friend and godbrother, Shripad Bhakti Gaurava Narasingha Mahārāja, Jagat Guru Swami, along with his dear disciples who extracted the relevant shiksha and correlated it to the appropriate verses of Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī, that makes this exceptional treatise of devotion an absolutely necessary addition to one's progressive march towards the ultimate goal of life, service in the line of Shri Shri Gandharvika Govinda Sundar, as propounded by Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī. May the readers of this work be blessed by the compassionate hand of our guardians, in order that they may give proper and clear directives to all that they meet, so that they may become family members of Govinda. As a result, the Vaishnava community will prosper in a happy, harmonious, and progressive way. Swami Bhakti Kishore Aranya. Preface by Swami Bhakti Vigyan Giri. At the beginning of 2008, while transcribing the lectures of Śrīla Bhakti Rakshak Śrīdhara Deva Gosvāmī Mahārāja, I noticed how many times His Divine Grace referenced Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī's Upadeśāmrta, and was inspired to see if I could compile a commentary on the original verses of Śrī Rūpa from his talks. As there was ample reference material to draw from, we eventually embarked upon printing the first edition of Upadeśāmrta with illuminations by Śrīla Śrīdhara Mahārāja. When we presented the first edition to our Gurudev, Om Vishnupad Shri Srimad Bhakti Gaurava Narasingha Mahārāja, on his Vyas Puja in 2009, he felt great joy upon seeing it, so much so that in the same year, during Kartik Mas, he gave a number of talks from Upadeśāmrta at Radha Damodar Temple in Śrī Vṛndāvana Dham. In particular, he spoke on the last 2 verses in relation to taking up residence at Śrī Radhakund and bathing in her sacred waters. Since its initial publication, many kind-hearted devotees have expressed their appreciation. Now that all copies of the first print have been exhausted, we are reprinting it for the transcendental pleasure of the Gaudiya Vaiṣṇava community. Our Guru Maharaj had suggested that for the second printing, we should include the word-for-word translation of the original shlokas. Thus, we have provided these for the benefit of the readers. Swami Bhakti Vigyan Giri. Introduction by Swami Bhakti Vigyan Giri. When Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī met Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Prayag in 1516 CE, Mahaprabhu directly entrusted the most essential teachings of Rasa Tattva, divine mellows, to him, and as such made him the Acharya of Abhideya Tattva, the Acharya who delineates the methodology of Bhakti, and the head of the Gaudiya Vaiṣṇava Sampradaya. Due to this, the Gaudiyas are known as Rupanugas, or followers of Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī. Empowered by Sriman Mahaprabhu, Śrī Rūpa wrote many works on Bhakti Tattva, such as Bhakti-rasamrita Sindhu, Ujjvala Nilamani, Lalita Madhava, Vidagdha Madhava, Laghu Bhagavatamrita, Radhakrishna Ganodesh Deepika, etc. All these books fully encapsulate the teachings of Sri Chaitanya. Thus, Narottam Das Thakur has written the following shloka about Śrī Rūpa. Sri Chaitanya manobhishtam stapitam yena bhutale svayam rupa kadhamahyam dadati svapadantikam. Translation. When will Rūpa Gosvāmī, who has established within this world the mission to fulfill the desires of Sri Chaitanya, give me shelter at his feet? This verse is from the Sri Prema Bhakti Chandrika. Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī's Upadeśāmṛta is meant for all practitioners of bhakti. This work begins with the most fundamental principles of sadhana, control of the mind, senses, etc., and ends with the highest aspiration for a Gaudiya Vaiṣṇava, namely Radha Dasyam, divine service unto Srimati Radharani at Radhakund in Vṛndāvana. In Upadeśāmṛta, Śrī Rūpa first outlines the preliminary hurdles that a sadhaka experiences, then describes those elements that are favorable and unfavorable for the cultivation of bhakti. He then explains what kind of association assists one's devotion, and how one should behave with the three levels of devotees, Kanishtas, Madhyamas, and Uttamas. Next, he instructs the sadhaka how to perceive a Vaishnava, and how one should chant the holy name, despite the fact that one may have no taste initially. When one eventually gains a taste for chanting Harinam, Śrī Rūpa advises that one should engage constantly in that process under the guidance of a resident of Vraja. He then systematically describes the various holy places of Vrajadam in accordance with Rasa, and who is the topmost servitor of Sri Krishna, namely Srimati Radharani. Finally, he explains the attainment of those fortunate souls who take shelter of Srimati Radharani at Radhakund. The importance of Upadeśāmṛta cannot be overstated. After the disappearance of Sri Chaitanya Dev, various pseudo-Vaishnava sects appeared in India, proclaiming to be followers of Mahaprabhu. However, such apasampradayas only brought infamy to the name Vaishnava by engaging in abominable activities and propagating misleading doctrines in the guise of Gaudiya Siddhanta. Since that time, the banner of Mahaprabhu has crossed the ocean, and many fortunate jivas around the world have taken shelter of him. However, wherever the preaching campaign of Sri Chaitanya and his eternal associates has gone, Kali is not far behind. After Mahaprabhu, 13 apasampradayas sprung up in Gaur-mandal and Vrajamandal to wreak havoc. Now, in the Mahamandal, many more versions of these apasampradayas have appeared to defile the pristine philosophy of Mahaprabhu. Leaping over the preparatory stages of bhakti, certain persons neglect anartha-nivritti, the stage of removing unwanted desires and habits, imagining that they can invade the realm of bhava and prema. However, without the prerequisite purification, such gatecrashers are voluntarily placing their own heads into the wood chipper of spiritual suicide. Thus, the preliminary teachings found in the beginning of Upadeśāmṛta are there to establish a foundation for all aspiring sadhakas. Indeed, the words of Upadeśāmṛta are significant for all Vaishnavas at every stage of spiritual advancement. The origins of Śrī Upadesamrta. At the beginning of his Anuvriti commentary to Upadeśāmṛta, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada has explained something of the origins of Śrī Rūpa's composition. Govinda vachane jhani ihai gauranga vani aprakata kale sharakata nila chale sindhu tire Shri Gauranga dhire dhire balila shunila bhakta tata. Translation: I accept the statements of Govinda to be the words of Gauranga, which were his essential teachings at the time of his departure. Shri Gauranga calmly spoke these on the seashore at Nilachala, where the devotees there listened. Ghaura Mukha Upadesh Sarva Amriterashesh Śrī Rūpa Gosvāmī Prabhuvar Karnadvara Panakari Lekanita Tahadari Kali Jive Dhile Bharahara. Translation: The instructions that issued from the mouth of Gaura are the essence of all nectar. The great master Śrī Rūpa Gosvāmī drank this through his ears and then wrote them down, presenting them to the jivas of Kali Yuga in order to remove their burden. The name Govinda in this first shloka refers to Govinda Dev Kavi, an Aryan Vaishnav poet in the disciplic line of Sri Vakeshwar Pandit. In 1758 CE, he composed Shri Shri Gaura Krishna Daya, a Sanskrit poem describing the Leela of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In the final chapter of this work, Govinda Dev Kavi writes how the Lord sat on the seashore with the devotees and discussed 5 verses. These are verses 5 through 8 found within the Upadeśāmṛta. From these words of Srila Saraswati Thakur, we can understand that the essence of the Upadeśāmṛta was originally spoken by Sriman Mahaprabhu, and later Śrī Rūpa compiled the instructions he had heard. It is interesting to note that the first 4 shlokas of Upadeśāmṛta seem to have their origins in other literary sources. Verse 1, Vacho Vegam, appears twice in a slightly altered form in the Mahabharata. Vacho Vegam, Manasakroda Vegam, Vivitsa Vegam, Udharopashta Vegam, Etan Vegan, Vinayedvai Tapasvi, Ninda Chasya Hridayam Napohanyat. Translation: One who performs austerities must tolerate the impulses of speech, the mind, anger, the senses, and the urges of the stomach and genitals. Criticism should not contaminate his heart. This is from the Mahabharata, Shanti Parva, 12, 269-15. Vacho Vegam, Manasakroda Vegam, Vivitsa Vegam, Udarapashta Vegam, Etan Vegan, Yo Vishahat Yudhirnams, Tam Manyeham, Brahmana Vai Munimcha. Translation: I consider one who is able to tolerate the impulses of speech, the mind, anger, the senses, and the urges of the stomach and genitals to be a Brahman and a sage. This is from the Mahabharata, Shanti Parva, 12, 288-14. Modified versions of verses 2, Atyahara Prayashascha, and verse 3, Utsahan Nischayat Dharyat, of Upadeśāmṛta can be found in Svatmarama Swami's Hatha Yoga Pradipika, 115 and 16, written in the 15th century. Atyahara Prayashascha, Prajalpo Niyamagraha, Janasangascha Lolyamcha, Shadbir Yogo Vinashyati. Translation: Eating too much or collecting more than necessary, performing extraneous endeavors, speaking about mundane subject matters, neglecting the injunctions of the scriptures, or blindly following scriptural injunctions, associating with mundane people, and mental restlessness. These 6 things destroy yoga. Utsahat sahasad dharyat, tattva jnanascha nischayat, janasanga parityagat, shadbir yoga prasidyati. Translation: Eagerness, courage, forbearance, knowledge, confidence, abandoning the company of materialists. These 6 enhance yoga. It should be noted, however, that scholars opine that Svatmarama Swami used quotations from earlier sources. Thus, it is most likely that these verses predate the Hatha Yoga Pradipika. The 4th verse of Upadeśāmṛta, Dadati Pratigrinnati, occurs twice in the 2nd and 4th chapters of Vishnu Sharma's Panchatantra, without any modification. The fact that either Sriman Mahaprabhu or Śrī Rūpa may have drawn inspiration from other literary sources when composing Upadeśāmṛta does not diminish its importance or beauty. It is a common practice amongst authors to refer to other sources when composing a work. Śrī Rūpa's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Padyavali, and Laghu Bhagavatamrita quote extensively from other texts. It is also worth bearing in mind that the aforementioned 4 verses, which have been adjusted in order to fit the necessities of practitioners of sadhana bhakti, are concerned with the most rudimentary aspects of Abhideya Tattva. The remainder of the verses pertaining to the higher principles of Abhideya Tattva, Vaishnav Tattva, and Prayojana Tattva are unique compositions. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Upadeśāmṛta. Prior to its propagation by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Upadeśāmṛta was practically unknown amongst Gaudiya Vaishnavas. In 1940, Sri Vanamali Lal Goswami of Radharaman Temple recounted to the followers of Srila Saraswati Thakur how Bhaktivinoda had visited him in Vṛndāvana and found a copy of Upadeśāmṛta in his library. With Vanamali Goswami's permission, Bhaktivinoda Thakur copied the manuscript and serialized it in the 9th volume of Sajjanatoshini magazine in 1898, along with his own commentary, the Piyusha Varshini Tika. Bhaktivinoda Thakur further propagated the glories of Upadeśāmṛta by writing 12 articles based upon verses 2 and 3. These were later compiled into a book called Bhakti-āloka. He also composed the Bhajan Lalasa section of his songbook, Sharanagati, based upon the verses of Upadeśāmṛta. Thus the Vaishnav world owes a great debt of gratitude to Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur for his discovery and dissemination of Upadeśāmṛta. Renowned commentaries on Śrī Upadeśāmṛta. There have been several important commentaries written on the Upadeśāmṛta. The first known commentary was the Upadeśāmṛta Prakashika by Sri Radharaman Das Goswami, who was in the disciplic succession of Srila Gopal Bhatta Goswami. This short Sanskrit commentary was published by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, along with his own commentary in Sajjanatoshini in 1898. In 1915, following in the footsteps of Thakur Bhaktivinoda, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur wrote the Anuvriti commentary to Upadeśāmṛta. He also composed a poem in Bengali prose called the Upadeśāmṛta Bhasha, based upon each of the 11 verses of Upadeśāmṛta. This poem has been included as an appendix in our book. In 1975, the illustrious world preacher, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, wrote a commentary to Upadeśāmṛta, which was published under the title, The Nectar of Instruction. At present, this is perhaps the most widely read commentary on Upadeśāmṛta. Illuminations by Śrīla B.R. Śrīdhara Mahārāja. This edition of Śrī Upadeśāmṛta contains illuminations by Srila Bhakti Rakshak Śrīdhara Deva Gosvāmī Mahārāja, one of the principal disciples of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. These commentaries have been gathered from informal talks given in the 1980s, where he spoke extensively to disciples and followers on the topics and verses found within Upadeśāmṛta. Srila Śrīdhara Mahārāja was revered for his unparalleled Vaishnav qualities, Shastric knowledge, and his clear explanations of the deepest aspects of Gaudiya Vaiṣṇava Siddhanta. Thus we are confident that his illuminations on Śrī Rūpa Gosvāmī's Upadeśāmṛta will bring joy to the hearts of all those traversing the sweet path of bhakti, inspiring them to continue in their service to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. In closing, we offer our most profound respects unto our Guru Varga, and in particular to our Gurudev, Śrīla Bhakti Gaurava Narasingha Mahārāja, and his beloved godbrother, Shripad Bhakti Kishore Aranya Mahārāja, who are constant sources of inspiration. Falling at the feet of the Vaishnavas, we pray that we may please them with this humble offering. Narasingha Pada Sevaka, Swami Bhakti Vigyan Giri. Mangalacarana, auspicious invocation. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Kripashi Murtaye, Srimate Bhakti Gaurava, Narasingeti Namine, Namo Acharya Simhaya Gauradaya Swarupine, Susidanta Prakashaya, Kudarshana Vinashine. I offer my obeisance unto Om Vishnupad, Sri Srimad Bhakti Gaurava Narasingha Mahārāja, who is the personification of Sri Krishna's mercy. I offer my obeisance to that lion-like Acharya, who is the embodiment of Sri Chaitanya's mercy. I offer respects unto he who manifests the true Vaishnav Siddhanta and eliminates all types of false philosophies. Nama Om Vishnupadaya, Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale, Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Svaminiti Namine, Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine, Nirvishesha Shunyavadi, Paschatyadheshatarine. I offer my respectful obeisance unto Om Vishnupad, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who is most dear to Sri Krishna in this world. Our obeisance unto you, the servant of Srila Saraswati Thakur. You are propagating the message of Sri Gaura and delivering the Western countries, which are pervaded with impersonalism and voidism. Devam Divyatanum Suchanda Vadanam, Balarka Chelanchitam, Sandranandam Puram Sadeka Varanam, Vairagya Vidyam Buddhim, Shri Siddhanta Nidim Subhakti Lasitam, Sarasvatanam Varam, Vandetam Shubhadam, Madheka Sharanam, Nyasishwaram Śrīdharam. His speech is most charming, and his form is adorned with garments that resemble the hue of the early morning sun. He is the abode of condensed transcendental bliss, the principal choice amongst devotees, and a veritable ocean of renunciation and knowledge. He is a treasure house of pure Siddhanta, resplendent with beautiful devotion, and is foremost amongst the followers of Saraswati Thakur. I offer my obeisance unto that leader of sannyasis, Śrīla Śrīdhara Deva Gosvāmī, who bestows auspiciousness and is my sole shelter. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadhamahyam Dadati Sva Padantikam. When will Rupa Gosvāmī, who has established within this world the mission to fulfill the desires of Sri Chaitanya, give me shelter at his feet? Shri Chaitanya Dayasudha Dhunidharo Dhamo Dharamodhado Ramananda Sanatanuga Raghushi Jiva Jivya Prabhu Radha Shama Rasamritabdhi Makara Brathaika Samradhiya Sa Śrī Rūpa Ihamritabdhi Lahari Sparshe Spriham Yachatu. With eagerness, I desire to touch the waves of that ocean of nectar, which is Śrī Rūpa Gosvāmī. He is the embodiment of the ambrosial Ganga of Sri Chaitanya's mercy, and gives great delight to Swarup Damodar. He is the follower of Rai Ramananda and Sanatan Goswami, and is the very life of Raghunath Das Goswami and Jiva Goswami. He is indeed the emperor of aquatics, swimming within the nectarian ocean of rasa for Shri Shri, Radha, and Sham. Shri Vṛndāvipinam Suram Yamapitachrinam Sa Govardhana Sa Rasa Stalikapyalam Rasamayai Kim Thavadanyat Stalai Yasyapyamsha Lavena Narhati Manak Samyam Mukundasyatat Pranebhyopi Adikam Priyevadhaitam Tatkundamevashraye. What to speak of other places? Even the most delightful forest of Vrinda, the opulent Govardhan, or the Rasastali, which is replete with sweet mellows, cannot be compared to even a fraction of a particle of that Kund of she who is dearer to Mukunda than his own life. I take shelter of that Radha Kund.